Okay, so this is video 5 on forgetting. This is unit 6. So make sure you have your notes titled Forgetting. So we've talked about this information processing model a lot. First, your information comes in through your sensory input, and then it goes to sensory memory, which you have different iconic and echoic. And if it's not rehearsed or unusual, it's often forgotten. And then it gets encoded to short-term memory, and as long as it's rehearsed over time, it gets encoded into long-term memory. And here there's different types of memory. You have implicit and explicit memories. But today what we're talking about is why we forget. So how does this information get lost? So Daniel Satcher came up with a bunch of different reasons of why we forget. 3 reasons which we're going to talk about in this video today, is 3 reasons why we actually forgetfulness. He also talks about in the next video, video 6, about how memories are distorted. So how sometimes we confuse our memories, or we think a memory took place and it really doesn't. And then the last one is sometimes we have memories where they're persistent. We have unwanted memories which keep haunting us. So what are the 3 memories of forgetfulness, which we'll talk about today? So maybe you want to pause it and jot this down. Encoding failure is the first one. We're absent-minded and your mind is somewhere else, so we don't really encode it, and so then we forget it, which is sometimes like when I get home, I set down my keys and I can't remember, I didn't process where I'm setting them down, I didn't encode it, so that's hence I lose my keys. Storage decay, transience, it's oftentimes you don't rehearse it, so you forget it. And then retrieval failure, again, that lack of rehearsal, and there may be interference. So we have problems kind of recapping or retrieving the information. We'll talk about misattribution, which sometimes you record a wrong memory. We incorporate misleading information into one's memory. Suggestibility, this is the lingering impact of misinformation. It now becomes what we now see as our false memory. And we may now be biased to current feelings towards something could change the true feelings of a memory or a situation. So if I don't like somebody currently, that could impact a memory of what I've had in the past. That's the bias of it. So again, the 3 sins of distortion we'll talk about in the next video. So here are the 3 reasons why we forget, which I briefly mentioned. The first one is encoding failure. The second one is storage decay. And the last one is retrieval failure. So we'll talk a little bit about encoding failure. Encoding failure occurs because encoding and processing the information never becomes part of our long-term memory. We never properly encode the information. No matter how young we are, we selectively attend to a few of the sights or sounds we're exposed to. So we never really encode, write down, process the information. So we forget it. So here's an example. What is on the back of a $10 bill, $5 bill, or a dollar bill? Even though we see these items every day, how well are you encoding them? Okay, so if we had to look at a $10 bill, it's the Treasury Building. For a $5 bill, it's the Lincoln Memorial. And for a $1 bill, we get a 1. So how many of you actually were able to process that? How many of you actually encode that information? Now, if you're asked this again, you may remember it because you're now processing and encoding this information into your brain. Another reason why we forget is because what's known as storage decay. Storage decay is the idea that even if we encode and store information well, it is not rehearsed. It's forgotten over time. It decays. So without rehearsal, we forget things over time. Herman Ebbinghaus came up with what's known as the forgetting curve. He tested a lot of people and found out that a few days shortly after you memorize a list of terms, a few days after, your retention of those terms drops about 30%, and it fades rather quickly and then levels off. And over the next couple days, 20, 30 days, we tend to remember about the same information over those series of days. So what he found out is with the forgetting curve is you may forget a large chunk right after the event takes place, and then we level off over time unless we're constantly rehearsing it. So I will remember your name the entire year, but once I stop stating your name, I may tend to forget it over time. Retrieval failure is the inability to retrieve information, right? Get information. Even though I'm recalling, I'm recognizing I have a problem where my memory cannot get enough information to cue it back, or it might be because I'm having other information interfere with my memory. So learning new items may interfere with retrieving my old items, especially when they're similar, or some of my old memories could also interfere with retaining new memories. Okay, so retrieval failure is a big one. And there's two different types of interference. You have retroactive interference and proactive interference. And here's a nice hierarchy for having you remember the two different types of memory. Okay, so you have retroactive and proactive. And I would jot down old memories and new memories under it. So you have retroactive interference. Retroactive interference is when a new memory interferes with remembering an old memory. So this is when the disruptive effects of new learning on the recall of old information. So new memory interferes with remembering old. So this new memory that you have is going to impact you remembering the old information. So here's an example. When a new phone number interferes with you remembering the old phone number. Okay. Learning of a new language interferes remembering your old language. And finally, remembering this year's locker combination interferes with remembering last year's locker combination. Okay, so here I have my student that maybe I remember their name Julie last year. Okay, and now I remember Judy from this year. So I don't remember Julie's name from last year. Okay, this is when I say stated write down old, because retro, you don't remember your old memories. Okay, you have difficulty remembering the old memories because of the new. Proactive interference then is proactive interference is the disruptive effect of prior learning on the recall of new information. So this is when old memories interfere with remembering new memories. So you remember the old ones and you can't remember the new ones. So examples of this is memories where you parked your car on campus this past week interfere your ability to remember where you parked today. So you remember the old stuff. If you recall a new girlfriend, if you call your new girlfriend your old girlfriend's name, so you accidentally call them the old one. Maybe you call your new psych teacher your old psych teacher's name. Okay, so this is when the old information is interfering with the new. All right, so really with these two terms, you have to sit down and really kind of figure out a way in which you're going to remember the difference between the two, because a lot of students mix them up. Okay, and then the last one we've talked about with regression. Okay, regression does impact memory. Regression is how stress can impact you. So regression, as a way to protect ourselves, we tend to block out painful information or painful memories that are connected with stress. This is the psychoanalytic theory that it's a basic defense mechanism, that if things are too painful for us, we tend to block them out in our unconsciousness. So this is the term of aggression. So these are the different reasons why we forget, kind of bringing it back to the beginning of the video, talking about encoding failure, storage decay, and retrieval information. These are the different reasons why you may be forgetting information.